Okay, so now we're up to the stage where we're actually putting the covers back on the bike. First thing we do is put this modified fan cover on top of the batteries. So basically just goes in like so. Remembering you have to bend this up to get it in. No, it's important to keep it up above. It's important to keep this light switch for your underseat light above, so that it doesn't get lost below, because otherwise it's not retrievable. Good place to put it is out and around with your switch. Right, let me bend that up. Try not to lose this again. And hammer it back in. Bravo. Now, first thing we do is screw this back in so it doesn't get lost. I'm just using the two self-tapping screws that came with it. Preferably don't drop them. Fortunately, if you do, they'll just fall straight through. It only goes one way round, otherwise the screw and switch don't line up. Okay, and then we're on to putting the bolts into the fan cover. Remembering that the long bolts go in the front ones, and to only do them a few threads in so that you know they're in the hole, but you can let most of the work be done by the electric drill. Just put them in like so. The same goes for the top ones. A few threads in by hand, just to make sure they all line up and you don't end up cross-threading them. Now, if you remember these two, you can't actually get at the drill due to clearance issues with the cover. So these will have to be done up manually with the old-fashioned way. It's usually helpful to tighten it all the way down by hand before getting the wrench on it, because you can turn it faster. But it doesn't matter if you use the wrench; it will just take you a little longer. screen, please. Okay, so we have the old fan cover on. Now we're going to call it a battery cover. So we're just putting this plate on. It does only go one way around. You want the lock facing out that way, so the heads of the bolts facing that way, toward the front of the bike. You want to make sure that this cable does not get caught underneath at all. Like that. So this is out the side here, not caught underneath. And we just finger tie it, putting the 4 side bolts in this steel bracket. It doesn't all perfectly line up, so you want them pretty loose so you can move the bracket back and forth. Like so. This plastic bit, the holes may not line up perfectly with the flat bracket. But it is important to ensure that, because of that, the threads don't end up being crossed, because it will cause significant grief. So again, only hand tight and tightening down. Alrighty, now we can get on to tightening it with an actual tool. Okay, the next step is putting this main cover on. Basically just feed it in through there, front first, and down. Various things you want to look out for is you want to make sure that these tabs line up in there on both sides. And done correctly. And then you want to make sure that this tab goes underneath the hole on the red frame. And while you're doing it, make sure one of the outer tabs don't get clear. It might take a couple of goes to do it. That's fine. Then we're in. Now before we forget, these washers that went under here should go back under there. Putting these big screws in first will make your life much easier. Only finger tight at this stage. Moving on. The rest of these screws are all identical. And you're basically putting them one there and 4 more up each side. Both sides are identical. And there's a lot of give in the plastic, so it doesn't matter if you tighten them all up at once. And the top one needs doing as well. On this bike the tab broke off, so we'll do it on this side. So to recap, the screws you need are one there, and one in each of these 4 positions. So 6 total per side. Stop filming. Now we're up to putting the seat on. These are the last 2 bolts you have to do up, so you're really close. What you're trying to do is make sure this tab here goes underneath this hook. Because that way, to make sure it lines up with the strongest part of the plastic. Usually you give it a good whack, it should be on. You also know because the bolt holes will start lining up again. You're just putting them in. Alright. And tightening them down. Alrighty, now you're just putting the rubbers back on and we're done. Okay, when you're putting the rubbers on, just make sure you put this plastic insert in first. It goes here, and there's 3 push tabs, and then you just line them up with the holes. Give them with a good sized click, and you put the footrest rubber down. And then the other side for the rest. It's the same on both sides. I'm just trying to make sure all the rubber tabs are inside the holes. You don't want your rubber flying off at 100 k's an hour. Some are more compliant than others.